Okay, and we're live, and I'm about to start recording. Okay. All right, everybody. Welcome to the 54 podcast. Today, we're not actually doing an episode. It's more of an in memoriam piece. As everybody knows, I'm sure that everybody has heard now, or at least, if not, woken up to the news that we've lost Chadwick Boseman, star of Black Panther, and the Black Panther himself. As well as starring in movies like 42 as Jackie Robinson, and as James Brown. I forgot the name of the film, actually.
It was Get On Up.
Get On Up. There we go. Thanks for that. So yeah, he was a giant in the industry, and we're here to remember him. With me is Albert Munoz, who is a fellow nerd and a fellow cinephile. So I think there's no one better to join me in this conversation than him. So I mean, just to kind of start off, I guess I really just wanted to talk to everybody of basically like why this guy is so important to me and to the community, and essentially, and by the way, to anybody watching on the live stream, severely sorry about my background and just the way that I overall look. As you can tell, it hasn't hit me well, so I guess it's kind of appropriate given the circumstances. But it's been a rough 2 days. It happened yesterday, so it's technically only been one day. But we found out last night, after it was announced that he had died at the age of 43 from colon cancer, which is devastating news, especially for someone as young as he is. And the second that I heard it, I immediately remembered this live stream that he did not too long ago, where he did look sickly, and a lot of people assumed that it was for a role, as Albert was talking to me earlier before we started filming. And Albert, do you want to lay your thoughts down on that?
I remember exactly. I couldn't remember what he was promoting or something like that, but I just remember. Funny enough, he was wearing his Jackie Robinson hat, the 42.
Yeah, he was,
and he just looked incredibly thin. Like, I've never seen him that thin ever in my life. Like, he's not primarily like a buff dude, but like seeing him that thin, like unnaturally thin, just really like bugged me. It really felt eerie that he looked like that. And people speculated that he was doing it for a movie role, or he was under contract. He can say what he was doing for. Little did we know that he was slowly dying from colon cancer, and we wouldn't even have known that because he was a very private person. And, rightfully so. He deserves to be very private, being a celebrity. It's very rare that you have privacy as a celebrity to begin with. So for him to keep that a secret, which is mind-boggling, especially for 4 years. Like, he was diagnosed, I believe, 2016 with colon cancer. And
yeah, 2016.
During that time, he just kept doing movies, like MCU, like around Age of Ultron. That would have been came around the time. I could be mistaken, but that was after.
He was cast in the role, I think, in 2015, like late 2015, before the diagnosis. And then in 2016 is when they diagnosed him with colon cancer, which colon cancer has a very personal relation to my life, in that my grandfather, who's my late grandfather, because he's already passed away. He passed away, ironically enough, in 2015. He was essentially in the late 90s into the early 2000s. He had been diagnosed with two separate cancers. I can't remember the other one, or where it was located. But I know that his second cancer was colon cancer. And I remember being a kid and seeing the amount of just how difficult it was to supersede or be able to beat this kind of disease. I remember seeing my grandfather with different contraptions on and taking different kinds of medication, and sometimes not being present at all because he was in the hospital trying to get it treated. And by the time that I was born, and I was I met my grandfather essentially. My grandfather's from he's from May of 1923. So, being from May of 1923, my grandfather was already, I believe, in his 60s when I was a child. So it's hard to see your grandfather, who you love very much, or any family member for that matter, go through this kind of this kind of treatment. He survived the colon cancer, and he managed to live to be 92, where he eventually passed away when he developed a third cancer that didn't directly kill him. It indirectly caused kidney failure. So he didn't really die from the cancer directly, but essentially, like I know what the treatment is like, and I know how difficult it can be. And my grandfather, being 60 something years old and beating it was a miracle. And Chadwick was 43, and not everybody's the same. Not everybody's body's the same. Not everybody can do the same things that other people can. And it's unfortunate that we lost him. And we also have to remember that he was working at the same time that he was sick. I mean, when Black Panther came out, which was in 2018, he was already 2 years into his diagnosis, from what we know. So, and I'm sure I think they filmed the movie in 2017. So he was already 1 year into his diagnosis when he was on screen playing T'Challa. And so that is a monumentous deed, something that I don't think a lot of us could really do, is to be able to work like he did and train like he did while still receiving treatments for the
Cancer.
The colon cancer. And it's devastating news. It's hard to process. As a child, I had a lot of favorite superheroes, but I always did like the Black Panther a lot. And I mean, he was never like one of my top favorites. Moon Knight has always been my favorite, and obviously, and so have other characters like Doctor Doom, who's really more of a villain. Spider-Man, and whatnot. But Black Panther was always interesting to me. I always liked him, and I liked having the action figures. And I don't know where it is. I think he's actually up there. It's my first Black Panther action figure that I ever had as a kid, and I loved him. I absolutely loved that character, and I was happy when we finally found out that he was going to be in a Marvel film, and when I found out that Chadwick Boseman was going to get cast, because I was familiar with him from 42, from the Jackie Robinson film. And I actually wanted him to play Black Panther. I remember telling some people, I'm like, Chadwick Boseman would be a great Black Panther. And then it turned out to be true, and he got the role. And that was a really happy moment for me. I'm like, it's great when you like picture somebody in a role and they actually get it.
Yeah.
And so it was a bit of a sweet little moment for me to just kind of be like, yeah, like the dude that I wanted got it. And it still is it hurts a lot to see that the guy that I always wanted to see in that role got it, and we've lost him as well as a result. But he left a damn fucking very well placed impact with that role, and for the other characters that he's played. He's always been a figure of black empowerment, and just empowerment in general for all communities, really. It's nice to see. It was really great to see a black superhero that wasn't, a vampire hunter or something else, or like, Shaquille O'Neal in a weird rubber costume. So
I still kind of like Steel, even though it's not that great of a film.
Yeah, it's not. But it was nice to see, something. It was nice to see a black figure in superhero media actually being taken seriously, and and not in a campy way. It was done in a very respectful and important
Obviously.
way.
Yeah, because even if you want to say, he wasn't necessarily the first black superhero, he was the first to inspire a movement, like a generation, to be influenced by that. Because sure, we had Blade, we had, going back in like the 80s and 90s with the Blank Man and all those black superhero and whatnot, but he was really the first one to really speak to a generation. Really, the only one I could say maybe was like Wesley Snipes, but again, it wasn't that as powerful as Black Panther with the whole movie coming out and seeing a lot of black faces going to theaters to be excited to see someone like them being represented on screen for once instead of the usual, Caucasian male or female on screen. When you watch Black Panther, and I saw like someone posted just like seeing the reaction of a crowd, like a lot of the young black folks watching the film in their robes, the traditional African garbs, and being like in love with the film and being excited to see something like that, and really puts like a tear to their hearts really when they heard the news about it, because they were so like excited to see something that them getting represented, something that can speak to the black community, can speak to people of color, a lot. And to see someone like Chadman pass away, unfortunately, it really devastated a lot of people. I've never seen anybody be united when at all in certain occasions, but when Chadman passed away, it was a moment where like you see everybody really being united and just in shock at this
Right.
happened.
No, and I know you could tell. I mean, Chadwick had a profound impact and influence on everybody in the 2010s. And you can tell. I mean, just not just through Black Panther, but his other films. You know, he definitely laid influence on a lot of people. Barack Obama recently posted about it. You know, photos with Chadwick in the White House because Chadwick did go to the White House during his during the time that
Administration.
yeah, when 42 was coming out, and you know, and they spent time together. There's Joe Biden fucking tweeted about it or wrote about it as well. Kamala Harris. So you know, it's like the politicians are talking about it, and our world leaders are talking about it, and we have people in the Hollywood community that are both retired and still working that are talking about it, and it's really difficult to process that it's happening. You know, it truly is. You know, I wrote a little thing about it, which I'll actually just read out because I feel like it's able to collectively explain my thoughts a little bit better than I am. Just you know, trying to improvise here. But I said, part of me still can't believe that this is true. You know, we've lost a giant in the world of cinema and a phenomenal human being. Chadwick Boseman embodied the roles he played with grace and vigor. And as a result, his presence was very powerful. I felt it whenever he was on screen. I loved the stories of the Black Panther when I was growing up. There's something very different about how the character was written and portrayed that stood out to me. A child with no narrative frame of reference could still understand how impactful the world of Wakanda truly was. And this man brought T'Challa to life while he himself was battling his own demons. He will forever be remembered, but not just as a performer, but as a king. And I truly believe that summarizes what I feel most people think about him. He was a king in that sense. You know, people know who this man was, and they revered him and they admired him, and I really don't think that anybody in lately has been able to really capture that kind of conversation starter that Chadwick set down in history now. It's going to be difficult going forward. You know, I've already heard some people just like ignoring the fact that he fucking died and started talking about recasting Screen Rant.
Which is, I know that was like a terrible piece. Which
Yeah.
I understand. I understand. You know, that was in my mind at first, just like, oh, how would this even work after the MCU? But at the same time, I'm just like, look, this man just passed away. He died, literally, like not even 24 hours ago.
Mm-hmm.
We should respect his honor, respect the dead. You know, let him rest, let him have his moment. Everybody grieve, let everybody have their moment to say about him.
Yeah, we're all
And
still grieving. You know, it's not appropriate to really start talking about the business side of things in reference to this idea. You know, I don't care what they do. I don't care if, you know, down the line they just write the character out or recast him or whatever the fuck they decide to do. That's irrelevant right now.
Yeah.
The what's important right now is that we remember the Chadwick Boseman as the artist that he was and as the figure of progression that he was.
He was such a cultural impact to many people, really, and it's just like you don't see that as often in modern, at least in this current generation. But like he was one of those few people that had an impact
Right.
on us. Really.
No, and you know, like everybody knew it, especially people in the comic book community. You know, Stan Lee, before he passed away, was talking about the impact that Chadwick Boseman had, not just on him personally, but on the character that he co-created. You know, and I'm sure that when you know you create something and you see somebody embodying it so well, it must bring you some kind of joy. And I'm sure that Stan felt that way with Chadwick. You know, it's interesting. It's always interesting to see the perspective of the creators. You know, to kind of see how they feel about the actors portraying their characters. And he did a phenomenal job. I mean, he's an American actor. He was portraying an African character, and he did it so well and so respectful to the culture that he was trying to tackle as well. You know, he learned how to just embody that world and bring it and make it digestible for people that don't necessarily understand it all that well, or aren't too familiar with it.
Yeah.
And it's created a lot of wonderful moments amongst the children that admire superheroes and whatnot, because now they're capable of putting a face to their own struggles and to their own lives. Relatability is very important when you're writing these kinds of characters, when you're trying to portray them. And you know, now you have people, you know, you have a character that represents the struggles of not just people here in the United States, but worldwide really. And he really is a kind of a staple for really all minorities in the world. I mean, I'm Hispanic, and it's still great to see a character who's supposed to be who's technically a quote unquote minority, and he's a king. You know, he rules his own country, and it's such a fantastic, it's such a beautiful note to the way that humans should see the world, the way that we should be communal with one another. We should understand that anybody could be anything, and that anybody could be good at anything as well. And it just really, really hurts, man. It really, really fucking hurts, because I can't see. I can't see. He had so much left to give us.
Yeah, and he was only that young, like 43. Like, he was really young.
He was 43, yeah. And you know, and ironically enough, he passed away on Jackie Robinson Day,
And
Jack Kirby's birthday.
the Jack Kirby birthday. Yeah, exactly. And it was just like, and ironic because Jack Kirby designed the character. He and Stanley co-created these characters, and primarily it was Black Panther. And ironically, after Jack's birthday is when Chadwick died. All this happened, and it's just like, it's just crazy to think about.
Yeah, no, I couldn't believe it when I was reading it. You know, I was like, I mean, it's this. I had like this 1 to 2 minute reaction of just, I can't, you know, like shock, and then I remember that live stream, and I went, oh my god, the dots are connecting, you know, and it's hard. I mean, we've never even had an actor that portrays a character in like a franchise like this large, you know, pass away. You know, we've never. It's such a weird, and it feels eerie. It feels icky. You know, there's something about it that I can't explain necessarily, but it feels really, really fucked up.
Like,
you know, I don't know. You know, I really, like, I've had trouble. I teared up when I was reading about it. It's hard to take this, you know, seriously. And like I said, I have personal connections to colon cancer. So on top of that, you know, seeing the kinds of treatments that my grandfather had to go through, and relating that back to Chadwick, who went through this for 4 years and still had the time to not only do his job and perform as an actor, but also had the opportunities to visit children who were also suffering from terminal illnesses, and bring them joy and hope, while he himself was in the same boat, is such an admirable and respectable quality of a man. Honestly, I can't begin to tell you how much respect I truly have for him as a result.
It's just incredible. Like, nobody could ever imagine him in that scenario, and just, it shows how brave this man was. Like, how knowing that he's slowly dying, or didn't even know he was dying, but it's on that 50-50 chance really, but still pushing himself forward, knowing he might have limited time left on this earth, to still be on top, to still be successful, to still be starring in lead roles. Like, that speaks volumes, like what he achieved in 4 years.
Yeah, no,
knowing that
it's so amazing just to see him doing it, and there's very few actors that are capable of doing things like that, you know. Like, now the only actor I can really say that does something similar to what Chadwick did was Val Kilmer, but because Val Kilmer, I don't know if you know, he had throat cancer. I don't know if he still has it, but he had to have a tracheotomy. He can't speak anymore. So, you know, it's like he was working. He took a hiatus, but he was working through it, and he's back. He's working again, and he can't even talk. So it's there are actors that persevere and move forward and are capable of doing their job regardless of what how their personal lives are affected. Chadwick was one of them, and he really he shot through it, man. He really spoke volumes through his actions. And I was reading, there was this journalist who commented on the death of Chadwick, and he said he was talking about how he had actually had a conversation with him a couple of years ago, between, I think, in like 2018, I think. And he sat down with him, and he was talking. He asked him a question like how difficult is it to change, to be able to like fluctuate weights and like builds between roles, because a lot of actors have to immediately bulk up to play a superhero, and then they have to go back down to play a more average looking character, or whatever it may be. Actors have to be very versatile physically as well. And so he was talking to Chadwick about that, and Chadwick is like, "Oh man, you have no idea." That's exact word. I mean, I'm paraphrasing a little bit, but those were practically the exact words that he said. He said, "You have no idea. You have no idea the struggle that's been going on." But he's like, "Hopefully, but one day I'll live to tell the tale." That's what he said. And so, nobody knew what was actually going on, but he was hinting at it. He's like, "You have no idea, what's going on." And Chadwick was basically telling him, like, "Yeah, I'm going through this, and I hope I get to live to be able to tell people eventually, the struggle that I went through and what had actually happened." Unfortunately, that didn't come to fruition, and I wish it had. I wish his perspective had been the right one. His outlook had been the right one, rather. But, I have to say that even at 43, I think he accomplished, way more than any actor could hope to accomplish in their lives.
Yeah.
He became an A-list celebrity. Not only that, but he became an aspiration to everybody around the world. He became a household name. He became recognized for multiple different characters that are all, in their own right, extremely important to all communities, and specifically, again, like the black community, like him playing not only Jackie Robinson but James Brown, and now Black Panther. He laid so much. He created such importance around these figures. Most actors can't say that they did that. There's not a lot of actors. There's people in Hollywood that are in their 90s and can't say that they accomplished that much. So it's, even at 43, he lived a life that I have to say, I think he'd be proud that he lived, and that he led, and I'm happy that we had him, even though it was brief. I'm glad that we had him for the time that we did, and I'm glad that he played the characters. Even with everything that I know now, I wouldn't want anybody else playing Black Panther.
I don't see anybody. I mean, you could, but at the same time, it's not going to be the same.
I know. Like, even going back, like if you can go back in time, and like, I would not change a thing. I think that he is still the only person I can picture in that role. And like I said, as a kid, I wanted him to play that part. I wanted him as T'Challa. I always did. So I would never change that. He was, to me, the Black Panther. Always. He is the king. And so
it really reminds me of three other people that really embody those roles that have also unfortunately passed on. And I happen to share this post. It's one, obviously, for me, Christopher Reeves as Superman, as an iconic role.
Yeah, but Christopher Reeves didn't die, while playing the character.
Yeah.
Because Chadwick was supposed to do a sequel,
Right.
But he did die. I mean, Christopher Reeves is still a tragic story, but he died much later on.
Yeah. I would say Christopher Reeves, Heath Ledger, and even freaking Brandon Lee, the Crow.
Yeah, he died on set. I mean, that one is even worse. That one, that he was young, and he didn't even die from any health related issues. Somebody shot him on set because they were stupid and didn't check the gun. I mean, I guess you can't point blame at anybody specifically, but
I'm just saying, like, their deaths really, like, because people resonate with those roles. It's really hard to see other people outside, especially with Brandon Lee in that scenario, because he did die, unfortunately, during the production of that. And then with Chadwick, it's just like he was supposed to do Black Panther too. He was signed on to do that, and then
Hmm.
it never happened. And it's a shame because technically, if you want to be specific about it, the last related thing, and it hasn't even come out, is What If, because they did confirm he did record audio of T'Challa for What If, but that's yet to be released.
Right. Well,
But
it's probably going to be his last role as T'Challa. I mean, it'll be interesting. I think so. But and it's also, but I think his send off in Endgame is really powerful. And I don't know if Chadwick had spoken to Kevin Feige about his diagnosis or not. I know there's a lot of contractual obligations, so maybe he had to, or maybe he just I don't know. I don't really know who he told in that world, in that space. I don't know. It's hard to say. But I do think.
he did notice, yeah.
But
Oh, sorry.
and it's okay. I did notice that in Endgame, I always thought it was very strange in a good way. I always thought it was extremely strange how in the scene at the end and during the climax of the film when Captain America gets the call on his headset from Sam, from the Falcon, saying like, Cap, can you hear me? It's Sam. And then he says, on your left. I originally, when I first watched that, I expected to see Sam fly through the portal first. But no. The first person you see is T'Challa walking through the portal. And he's the one that's given the glory of being first introduced out of all the people that have been revived. And he's very heavily focused on. You see him kind of like with a very stern face, but with this, he's bathed in this yellow light. It makes him look very glorious, powerful. The king has returned. It's I always thought that was oddly fitting. Now, in retrospect, it's oddly fitting, looking at it, because that's why I wonder if him and Feige had that conversation, because that moment should have been for Falcon, but it went to T'Challa, and it's fitting now.
I kind of feel that is the case because I remember watching Endgame in theaters, and I watched it twice, back to back, same night, and on both theater reactions, everybody just applauded when Black Panther was the first person to show. Out of all characters, when they brought them back, when it was T'Challa, everybody just applauded.
Mm-hmm.
And that just showed the impact of this character. The fact that compared that to and sure, Falcon would have been interesting, but it's just like it wouldn't have gotten that same reaction.
Yeah,
as
I mean,
T'Challa
he shows up afterwards, and everybody's like, "Yeah, whatever." But it's like, but Black Panther gets the glory. I mean, he's a character that really resonates not only with everybody, but like I mentioned, like the movie had a large impact on the way that people viewed not only that character but that culture. And so it really created a movement. I mean, it was nominated for Best Picture at the Academy Awards. Now, whether it really deserved that nomination, it's up to debate between a lot of different people. But I personally think that, the reason it received that is because of its cultural prevalence. And it's interesting to note, that, he was essentially, I mean, I don't know if he ever got nominated for any other Academy Awards besides the film. I don't know if he got nominated for Jackie Robinson or James Brown. But what I can say is that he himself, that character popping up on screen for the finale, is obviously going to be very important to people. I mean, obviously, Sam the Falcon is, I think, still a very important character because he's also another way for us to show that there's importance amongst the black community in superhero films and in Hollywood in general, that these characters matter. But at the end of the day, the Falcon is kind of, I don't want to call him a sidekick, but he's kind of like second to Cap.
Yeah, secondary character.
Yeah, exactly. He's a supporting character, and Black Panther is not that. Black Panther doesn't need any goddamn. He's nobody's supporting goddamn character. He is the fucking Black Panther. He's the king. And so it's that's why I think it's so important that he was portrayed that way, because he wasn't second to anyone. He was who he was in that sense. Yeah. That's the way that the character was written, and the way that he was written to be seen. And I don't know, man. It's the Endgame tribute. I'm calling it a tribute now to Chadwick. Seems very fitting, and it's going to be hard, it's really going to be hard watching anything MCU related now, knowing that Chadwick is gone.
Yeah.
Even if he wasn't involved in it, like I'm still excited for my Moon Knight series, but even watching it is going to feel weird because I know Black Panther is not supposed to be involved in that series at all, but knowing that it takes place in the universe and that there's just that very important presence missing is going to hurt.
Yeah.
So I going forward, I know that I'm still in shock. I'm basically just sound like a broken record here. I'm just reiterating myself. But it's hard to really contextualize what I'm trying to say. Thank you. That's all I can say to him. Thank you for doing what you did, and I will never forget everything that you did for us. Speaking of Chadwick, he died at home peacefully with his wife, which I think is the way I would want to go with my family, and it's the way that I would personally feel like going if I had to at some point. Being surrounded by the people that I love. So let's just be happy that we had him for the time that we had him, and let's be thankful for everything that he gave us in that short period of time.
It's just never going to be the same, honestly. And yeah, honestly, just thank you to Chadwick. Chadwick, you're just your voice. I would say history definitely. You left a mark on history.
No,
and you definitely. Yeah, that's what I meant. Like with Chadwick, he definitely did leave an impact. Whether or not you want to disagree about Black Panther or how good of a film it is, whether or not it's Oscar worthy, it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, the impact it left on society and how it left an impact on the culture, on the Black culture, and let it be a movie for Black people to celebrate something that they can cherish, and for Chadwick to leave such a big mark on PLC community with his incredible history of acting, knowing the fact that his death was not in vain. His death was for nothing. He will be remembered. He will be, cherished. He will be grieved on. He will be forever the Black Panther. And to people will be like, oh, I wouldn't want to typecast myself or typecast someone in a role, but he really was the role, and you really can't see anybody in that role anymore. Once a person has left an impact, an image on you, and now that he's taken away from us, it's just there really is no choice. It really is just he is the king.
I agree with you. It's very difficult to just process this. And also in Memoriam, I don't know if I can get the camera to show what it is that I have up here, but for people that don't know, I'm a collector of figurines and hot toys and all of that. I actually have Thanos up here. And basically, I actually have the Black Panther figure because, again, like I said, I buy figures for characters that I really, really like and I loved growing up, That's why I don't have Thor. Don't tell Chris Hemsworth that. I love the Thor films, I love them, but I was never like, I like Thor. I've always liked other characters from that. So, I have Spider-Man, I have the Punisher, I have Daredevil, I have Ghost Rider, I have Luke Cage, I have Captain America, I have Iron Man, I have the Hulk, and I have Black Panther. And Black Panther was always kind of just off to the side in my groups, not because I didn't value him, but it was kind of hard to pose him because his stand is really big. And so what I did was the Black Panther figure comes with a Chadwick Boseman head sculpt. It comes with his likeness. And so I decided to put I decided to put him in the center of a candle in his memory up there. And then all the characters are surrounding him from left to right doing the Wakandan salute. You have Spider-Man doing it, you have the Punisher doing it, which is weird. You have Daredevil doing it, you have Ghost Rider doing it, which is weird. You have Luke Cage doing it, and you have Captain America. Well, Captain America can't do it because his arms don't want to bend that way, but I tried.
But Blue Lives Matter.
Yeah, apparently, right. But So like, yeah, no, I did the best that I could, but I just feel like if I can do something, I might as well should. And I also had Thanos take his helmet off and like kind of like a sign of respect. So he's holding his helmet instead of like wearing it. As you can see his beautiful big bald head there. That's the that's Barbara Streisand's stepson, by the way. But only a few people are gonna get that joke. Um, but
It's. I think the one that got me the most reading was Angela Bassett's post about him. That
oh
really
yeah,
kind
no,
of
that was
struck.
beautifully written. Yeah,
And just as the image she put of him, of her hugging him, it's just, and that really hit me. And they're not, and obviously they're not really related, but just the
it
fact that they
feels that
portrayed
way.
these,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah. It does. And it's just, man, when you're watching these movies, you feel like the people portraying them are invincible.
yeah, you just don't think that they would ever like you just
You
it,
forget, you forget at the end of the day that they're
they're
human
human.
beings. They're all human beings. They're just as vulnerable as you and I are. And sometimes we even forget how vulnerable we ourselves are. Um, but it's important to remember that at the end of the day, we're all human, and we should all cherish the amount of time that we have with each other, and never
Yeah,
forget that. Because I could anything could happen the day of tomorrow. I could fall down a ladder, or just have an aneurysm in the middle of the street, and that's it. And it's like you never we're all the same amount of vulnerable. We're all composed of the same matter, and no matter how famous you are. I mean, I guess money does make a little bit of a difference, but still, in reference to your health. But I still say that no matter what, the same thing that can kill you can kill me.
yeah,
And it's like I said, it's important to cherish those people. I love spending time with my father. He's not dying or anything, but he's old, so I like spending time with him. I like remember reminiscing and holding on to those moments. I
yeah,
like doing. I never, and even my dad's older, but not even him. Like people that are younger. My friend Wilson. I love cherishing and spending as much time as I can with him. The same goes to my friends Chase and Patrick. Nothing is necessarily wrong with them, the exception of Wilson. But like there's nothing really wrong with them. But you never know. Like there's always a chance that the person that you talk to every single day may not be here tomorrow. And
yeah,
it's a scary thought, but it also gives you incentive to be with them, and to
yeah,
and to, to remember them, and to constantly really to never take them for granted.
yeah.
I had a hard time understanding that. I'm about to tell a little personal story, but when my grandmother passed away, the wife to the grandfather that I was referring to, so they're both my paternal grandparents. So after my grandfather died in 2015, my grandmother died 2 years later in 2017, but she was much younger than my grandfather. She was younger by like a decade. So she was 83 when she passed. But I remember distinctly the night before she had her stroke. She had a stroke, and that's how she passed.
Jesus.
The night before she had her stroke, I I remember sitting here in this exact same spot on the computer, and I was working on something. And actually, my grandmother helped get the computer that we're using right now to talk. And I remember getting a phone call. My phone was charging. I had my little HTC phone back in then. Remember HTC? Remember when they were a goddamn thing? Anyway,
Yeah.
back to the remember going back to the point at hand. I remember getting a call, and I kind of looked over because I could see the screen for where I was because my eyes still worked. And I remember seeing over at the screen, and it said Nana, which is what I call my grandmother, which is Nana. She was calling me just to talk. It was like just to check up on me. It was like 10:30 at night. I was tired, and I didn't want to talk at the moment. I said to myself, I'll call her later. So I just let the phone ring, and it went to voicemail and whatnot, whatever, right? I didn't think much of it. I wake up the next morning to find out that she had a stroke and that she couldn't talk, that she was completely immobilized, completely paralyzed, essentially, with the exception of the one side of her body. And here I had to go see my grandmother, this woman who I had cherished my whole life, that I felt was invincible, that I couldn't, in my opinion, live without, because at the end of the day, she was my emotional support. She gave me more emotional clarity than my own parents did. I didn't have her anymore. She was still alive, but I couldn't communicate with her. And the only thing that she was asking me for was water. That was really the only thing we could talk about. I remember just the only side of her body she could move was the right side, because the stroke happened on the left side of the brain. So the left side controls the right side controls the left side. So her right side was the only one that was working. I remember holding her hand as she tightened the grip around my hand. And I told her that everything would be okay and that I love her. And she wasn't capable of responding. You know, she gripped, she held on. I could see that she was trying to, but she couldn't. And it was truly a moment. It made me truly regret missing out on that phone call. It would have been such a casual phone call. It would have been such a typical conversation, but it's the only conversation that I missed out on that I wish I could have had with her. You know, and it sucks. It sucks to this day, and I still hold regret in my heart for that day. And that's why, you know, and I whenever I talk to people about their loved ones or the people that they hold close, or whoever it may be, never forget that person may not be here tomorrow. Don't pass up an opportunity to communicate with them if you can. I mean, I know that, you know, our lives are busy and we all have different things and we can't always be talking with each other at every single given moment. But remember that we have a limited amount of time with another. And no matter what your age is, like I said, Chadwick Boseman went at 43. And he was extremely young. So I don't care how old you are. If I care about you, I'm going to hold you close. And I've learned that. My lesson was learned from that day forward, you know, because it was sudden. Just like this. You know, my grandfather was diagnosed with his cancer, with the last cancer, which would be his third cancer, in 2015. In 2015. And they told us he had 5 years. And I was like, okay, I got 5 years with him. I got this. Then they find out that he had a growth in his kidney when they were doing a routine surgery. And 5 years turned into a month. And you just, you know, you're ready for one thing, and then out of nowhere the rug is swept underneath you, you know, and you have to readjust. But whether it be 5 years or a month, it gave me time to cherish the amount of the everything about him. I was able to sit down with him and cherish it. And this ring that I have on my finger, everybody thinks I'm married because I wear this thing. This ring is my grandfather's wedding band, which my grandmother gave to me shortly before he died because she wanted me to have it. She didn't have hers anymore. I think hers had been stolen or something decades ago. I don't really remember the story behind what happened to her wedding ring or her wedding band. But she had my grandfather's, and I wear it now every single day so that I can remember the two of them, their union and their relationship and their lives together. And again, that's more of a personal story, and I don't mean to sour the mood by talking about this, but I do want people to understand how precious every single moment may be, whether it be a second, an hour, a day, a month, or a year. Spend it well. You know, live your life happily and freely, but don't forget about the people that you care about that are close to you.
Yeah.
And that goes not just for your family, but also for your friends, your acquaintances, if you care about them.
Yeah.
And you know, even your pets. You know, I lost my childhood pet Chi-Chi in January 2016, almost right after my grandfather died in October of 2015, the 1st of October. So, you know, I lost Chi-Chi right after that. So, you know, it's like it at 15, by the way. So it's life can sometimes deal you a really shitty hand, but all you can do is try and make the best out of that.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter if you have a terrible set of cards, play the hell out of it, because you'll regret it if you don't. You know.
Just live the best of life, really. Just, and spend it with the people you love the most. Like, yes, we know
Mm-hmm.
as humans we have a ticking time bomb. We don't know how long we're gonna last until the day we just like that.
We all know we're gonna die. We just don't know when.
But instead of just waiting for that moment of death, or just constantly being like, "Oh, what am I doing? I got to do this today." Enjoy what you have now. That stuff could put on the side, really, because we all know as humans we just bound to die. It's just a simple fact. So instead of having to just worry about that constantly, we should try to spend the time that we have now, the moment we have now, breathing with the people we love, and to cherish those moments, and to spend the quality time we have, because you never know. We can never know what can happen when those loved ones, those people you care about, the family, friends, pets, wives, husbands, whatever, can just go away, and you wouldn't even know. You just would genuinely know. But you want to at least have that moment where, like, you had some, like, closure with them. You had good memories with them. You had good stuff to cherish with them. You didn't, like, sure, you had your fights here and there, but you ultimately never hated this person. You just remember them for the way they are, being a good person, and just being ultimately a good memory, a good footnote in your history, a good chapter in your life. And that's what you want to keep closest to your heart. And that's what matters the most, is that you had a good relationship with this person. And sure, I can't say that for everybody. I'm sure there have been people who had bad relationship with people, and those person they had with a bad relationship lost their lives, and they wish they can have that moment. But at least the good moments that you did have, cherish them. Cherish those good moments.
Don't live
Cherish
with
those good.
regret.
Don't live with regret. Exactly. Do not live with regret. Don't regret. Like, oh, I wish I could have done this person. No, like, the moments you did had, you had them, and if they were good, they were damn great. They were good in your heart.
Mm-hmm.
I know I'm not using the best words right now, but it's just
No,
ultimately.
and it's fine. I think you're getting your message across. And I know that you're coming from a sincere place. And yeah, no, I agree with you. I think the moments that you had that you thought were just good become amazing when that person's
Yeah.
no longer there. Those little moments. Those little
Those
moments
little
that we
moments.
all share, like George Carlin would say, those little moments that we all share,
Yeah,
the
those
universal
moments,
little
yeah.
moments, they become the highlights once someone is gone. I remember little things about being with my grandmother, for example, that I personally didn't think I would remember. I just thought they were, like very mundane tasks or things of that nature. But, remembering now, in retrospect, thinking back to it, I'm like, wow, like I'm lucky to have shared those moments. And it also makes you criticize yourself a little bit more, because you're like, I could have done better there. But at the end of the day, you recall these little brief moments in life that you shared with these people, and it makes you really, really care about. It really makes you remember these tiny little moments in finer detail, and place more importance on them as a result. And I can't forget that. I remember once with my grandfather, and this is a very brief story, but I remember with my grandfather, I wanted to get a little like toy. I wanted to get like an Iron Man action figure or something from like the store on 52nd Street in Bergen Lane, Nova Linea.
Yeah.
And my grandparents lived on 51st in West New York, New Jersey, and on between what was it, between Park Avenue and Broadway. The only reason I'm disclosing that information is because they're gone now, so I don't expect anybody to go to those buildings. But they lived between Park Avenue and Broadway, and I remember my grandmother was like, I have to be here to handle a couple things, so I can't go with you, because she would usually go with me. She's like, if you'd like, you can take your grandfather, and he'll just watch over you. But I knew my grandfather was already having trouble. Like he could still walk pretty well, but he was already like he was slowing down. He was getting old,
Yeah.
and so I remember having this little nice moment with him. I don't remember how old I was, but I remember walking down the street with him, and I remember putting his arm over my shoulder like he was like I was a medic, like like in D-Day, And I was guiding him. I had my arm behind his back, and he was smiling. He's like, this is a little excessive, but I am. He's like, but I appreciated it. He was happy, and everybody looking at me was kind of like happy. Like they just gave me smiles, seeing me like walk with my grandfather like that, and I didn't think much of it because to me it wasn't excessive. I was a kid. So I was walking with him, and I remember him sitting on the bench. He's like, "You go inside. I'll wait out here." And I went and I got my Iron Man toy. I didn't have enough money for it, but I remember they were like, "You're good. You're a child, so here you go." They like spared me like the extra dollar or two that I didn't have, which I paid them back later anyways for it. But I remember, and then I went back and I got it, and my grandfather looked at it and he made fun of me because I made him walk like 5 blocks to get like a 5-inch little piece of plastic. But but he's like, whatever makes you happy. And I remember and I walked back with him, in arm the way that I was walking with him. And it's such a, it seems like such a casual, mundane event, but it's something that you truly hold on to once somebody's no longer there.
Yeah, I've had memories like that with my
Yeah.
grandma, where it's just I'm going a little brief with my story, where it's just like my grandmother, she never really spoke English, and
Hmm.
I wasn't that great in Spanish, so me communicating her was very limited. I tried my best with her, and I always did promise, to this day I regret never fully learning like Spanish to talk with her, and that
Hmm.
was one of my regrets. But one of the days where it was towards the end of her life. I remember the last year I was with her. She was in the United States because she lived in DR, Dominican Republic, and she just happened to visit, and she was at this point, she was using her cane, and she needed to take her nap. And I remember I set up her bed and everything, gave her tea and whatnot, and she came over, she looks at me and just goes, "Thank you," in English. And I said, "You're welcome" in Spanish. And to me, that's like, that melt my heart. To this day, I get choked up about it because it's like she never, ever in my lifetime ever spoke English once. And for that to say, that's just to me, because I was the youngest and just because I was there alone taking care of her,
Oh, oh no.
it's just like, I get choked up. It's just like, I never heard this woman ever spoke English to me once. And for her to speak English just for me, you know,
It's impactful.
and it
It's
just,
it's beyond words. I think at that moment, I know exactly what you felt.
and it was that little moment, and you wouldn't think about it like
Hmm.
that much, but it's just like that moment that was a feel good moment becomes an amazing part of my history, part of my
It
life.
resonates with you
Yeah,
for the rest of your life. And it's funny because I'm sure that they don't even realize it when those moments happen. Like they're very particular to you, and you're gonna remember them. But I'm sure that like our grandparents didn't think about those moments in any kind of hindsight or go like, yeah, they're gonna remember that for the rest of their life. They have no idea, and part of that is a little sweeter. The fact that they don't realize that such minor little things stay with us for the rest of our lives. And it's interesting, and it's also I don't know. It's just it's also like receiving wisdom from them. Hearing them talk about their lives. My grandparents were older, which to some people might be a curse. To other people, it might be a benefit. To me, it was a bit of the down the middle because I lost them young. But again, some people don't even have grandparents when they're born. So I was at least lucky enough to have three. I
yeah,
had my two paternal grandparents, and I had my grandmother on my mom's side. So I was lucky to even have three. But having older grandparents as well is partially a blessing because they have so much more to share with you from a very young age. And I learned a lot about them, and I learned how to cherish people because of them, because of how many memories they had. They had gone through a lot. They had lost a lot of people themselves. Being older, a lot of the people that they know are also gone, with the exception of some friends and whatnot, right? But it's you learn through them how it is that they deal with grief, how they deal with the concept of loss, and it really prepares you a little bit more for not only their loss but for everything that you're going to experience going forward. It strengthens you a little bit.
yeah,
You have the right tools to deal with it, and like these are people that were in my life personally, but I'm very empathetic towards almost all human beings. Any loss of life to me is a big deal. even though some people, don't feel that way, and it's okay, if you don't, like, if Chadwick Boseman died and you're like, it's sad, but I don't really feel anything as a result, it's okay. You're not a bad person for feeling that way, but I personally, I can't overlook it. It's not something that I can simply just, look at and go, well, it sucks, but whatever, right? Like, no, to me, it's more of, it has it has a very massive infliction on who I am as a person, and it hurts, losing him. And I honestly have to say that I haven't felt this bad about losing somebody in pop culture and someone that I admired since Robin Williams.
Yeah, obviously Robin Williams was like the last person to me that kind of affected, and
And
then
Carrie
before
Fisher
that,
too. Yeah,
for sure,
yeah.
that and just those two, and they again had a great impact on culture,
Mm-hmm.
pop culture, and whatnot. Even beyond that,
Mm-hmm.
and it's just like that was like the last big thing with. Like, I remember Carrie Fisher was one, and then it was Robin Williams, and then even before that it was Michael Jackson. But Robin Williams was like the last one. Like, I felt like, holy shit, it's just like we're not that invincible as humans as much as we like to think we are. Because even if something like that could happen to Robin, that can happen in any one of us, and it's
No, yeah,
just
we
like,
lost only about a month ago, I think it was. We lost Grant Imahara from MythBusters. He was
and
like
then
49, but he had a brain aneurysm. And there's no sign that a brain aneurysm is going to happen. If it happens, it happens. Unfortunately, that's just how life is. There's no way to deter it. It just occurs. And so it's it's rough. It's rough seeing young people pass so suddenly.
and especially with the even beginning of the year, Kobe Bryant and his daughter.
Oh yeah, and Kobe hurt me, and the thing is, like, a lot of people know this about me, but I am not a sports fan. I have never I don't really, the only sports I watch are UFC and the World Cup when it happens every 4 years. I don't watch anything else. Those are the only two things that I watch. I love UFC because I'm a psychopath and I love watching people beat the shit out of each other. And I love soccer. I mean, I love soccer when it's like, countries going against each other. I'm like, I don't care about the teams. I want to see, the nations fight each other. There's something very visceral about seeing nations go against each other. Personally, I don't know. That's just me. But, and that's why I like the World Cup. But I'm not a sports fan. Like, I know some things about basketball. I understand some of the aspects of the game and some of the terminology, and I know some of the teams. Because I went to school, and a lot of people were really into basketball, so I had to sit next to their conversations and debates about who's better than who. But Kobe was always like a very, very prominent figure in my childhood because literally everybody knew who he was. He was an icon for all the right reasons, by the way. And I knew who Kobe Bryant was. I knew who Michael Jordan was. I knew who LeBron was. I knew who Magic Johnson was, even though he was before my time. I knew who fucking Larry Bird was. I know who who's another one I'm trying to think of right here. Dwayne Wade, Chris Bosh, Kevin Garnett.
Yeah.
I know all these players, but I don't really know anything about them as athletes. But I know about them as people. And so Kobe was kind of like I don't want to call him the Michael Jordan of our time, but in a way he was. He kind of like took the reins and became the best at basketball after Michael Jordan retired. And I think he actually beat his record before he retired, Kobe Bryant. I'm not entirely sure. I might be wrong about that. But I remember hearing that he died, along with his daughter, which is extremely tragic. I remember hearing that he died, and something in me was resonating in a way that I didn't think I would. I felt in my gut. I felt upset. I felt crushed. I'd never watched him play, but something about Kobe Bryant dying, something about losing that man who, to me, represented so many good things and so much of what humanity could strive to be. Losing that man was like losing a beacon of light. It's like seeing a lighthouse in the distance and then it just disappears.
Yeah.
It's and you're lost. You feel like things don't make sense anymore. How am I supposed to guide myself through this storm? There's so much there was so much passion and energy in there, and on top of that, I am a big cinema geek. I call myself a filmmaker, and he won an Academy Award for a documentary that I honestly believe he deserved to win for. I can't remember the name of it right now, but I know that he was talented in so many other regions and so many other arts besides just besides his athletic upbringing. He was a talented man, and so losing him as a human being hurt me. It's painful. It really is painful, and maybe that's because I have a lot of empathy for that. Maybe because I've been around death a lot in my family, because my family is older, so I see a lot of people come and go. But it hurts. It stings, even if you don't know that person. I didn't know who Chadwick Boseman was personally. I only saw him through his art, but it hurt. It hurts more than I'm capable of describing. And Kobe Bryant hurt, and maybe it hurt even more due to the fact that he died the way that he did. Especially with his daughter and 8 other people, wasn't it, or 7 other people, or 9? I don't remember at the moment, but
It just in that tragic way, really, that didn't need to happen, but it happened, and
yeah,
it
and
just
it didn't need to happen. It really did not need to happen. It was a foggy day. I mean, I'm not going to get into the details because this is about Chadwick. But at the end of the day, yeah, what occurred was avoidable, right? And that's what makes it, I think, even harder to process for a lot of people, is the fact that Kobe's death was avoidable, and it hurts you because you're like, why did these specific set of events have to happen? Why couldn't have it been deterred? Why did it have to be foggy that day? Why did things like this have to occur? Why did things line up to this precise organization? It upsets you because there's so many factors that just let it happen. Chadwick Boseman's death is very, very tragic because nobody knew about it. We were just completely hit with it. But I can, at the end of the day, at least feel I rest assured knowing that he was with his family, and that he was at home, and that even though what happened was, I'm absolutely sure, terrifying, it happened with people. He was with people he cared about, and I'm sure that a lot of them were. I don't want to say prepared, because it sounds like I'm trying to diminish what actually was going on, but that they were ready, and I know that he was loved, and I'm sure that he had the emotional support he needed, and I'm sure that everybody that was around him that knew about it had the emotional support to be there for him. So I can at least say I'm glad. I'm happy that he gave us what he gave us, and that he wasn't alone when all of this happened. It's important. A lot of people don't remember this, but it's important to have the people that you love and care about you be there when you're gone.
yeah.
So, I mean, on that note, I feel that we could probably put this to a close now, because we have gone over an hour. But regardless, this is not an episode. This is more of a memorial to Chadwick, and this is also a way for us to be, just for everybody to feel a bit more cathartic about what they're experiencing right now, kind of get it out, and also see a perspective of 2 people that were very close to the work that Chadwick Boseman was producing and working on. And also just so that you could get to know us from more of a personal scale, understand why we feel the way that we feel. I don't usually talk about. I'm not somebody who likes to publish my feelings with my personal family online. But for this specific event, I feel that it's important to share. and I thank all of you for anybody that watches the 54 religiously, which I doubt there's many of you, but any of you that do, thank you for listening in, and I hope that we gave you more insight into who we are as people, and I hope that if you're struggling right now with anything, or that you feel down or anything, I hope that our words maybe helped to comfort you and give you a new perspective on, or at least a different perspective, I should say, on these kinds of situations. But yeah, thank you everybody for watching. Albert, I don't know if you'd like to say anything before we close.
I think just thank you, Chadwick. Rest in power, our king.
Thank you, Chadwick Boseman. Truly was a king, and he will always be our king, our T'Challa. And may he rest easy. May he rest in power, as you said. And always remember to keep everybody that you love close. Never forget how important they are to you. And if they call you, pick up.
Yeah.
Everybody, have a good afternoon. It's been Joseph Cruz and Albert Munoz from the 54 Podcast, and we'll see you guys later.